Let's do this. Welcome back to the Speaking and Communicating podcast. I am your host, Roberta Ndlela. If you are looking to improve your communication skills, both professionally and personally, this is the podcast you should be tuning into. By the end of this episode, please log on to Apple and Spotify, leave us a rating and a review, and what you'd like for us to discuss on this podcast. Now, let's get communicating with Janet Elaine Schmidt, who is a performance facilitator and a mind guru who helps you use your own mind to your benefit. And before I go any further, please help me welcome her to the show. Hi, Janet.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Welcome. I'm so excited about our conversation, but first, please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Janet Elaine Schmidt, obviously. I guess you would say that I am a holistic healer that uses both techniques that are used in therapy and ancient methods to bring your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere into a whole agreement on a new belief. So basically, we go through and we reprogram what's not working for you.
Reprogram. And so what happens with reprogramming, we hear a lot of this is how from birth to, is it about age 7?
Yes, it is. It's from birth. I believe it's already when you're in the womb because we can hear. It's proven that the babies can hear. It's kind of like when you're in the mother's womb, you
Mhm.
hear the mother's voice. When you're out of the womb, you recognize your mom's voice. And so I believe that even some of the programming is done even prior to birth, but it is from 0 to about 7 years old. After that, it's society, your friends, and anything catastrophic that happens to you that's going to dictate how you live, your reality. I mean, it's all energy.
Mm. And then we always say parents don't have a manual of how to be the best parent and create the best kid. When you are being raised, so from those early stages to, as you said, even as a teenager, what is it that can be done differently now that we have this knowledge to say, okay, here's how a child's mind is going to be cultivated and programmed?
That's an excellent question because I hope there's a lot of prospective parents and early parents listening because when we look at ourselves, and this is the biggest thing, you have to be the student of your life and really be honest about your behaviors, your traits, your thoughts, everything, and
Mhm.
recognize that our parents did the best they could. But now we're in this body, and now we get to decide if we're going to take that characteristic or not. And one of the characteristics that I got from my mom was fear. So
Mm.
I was fearful of everything. And it wasn't until I deprogrammed it to have safety, security, and confidence that I could walk forwards. But these are things that we can get. We can get the other thing I got was inherited money consciousness. That is inherited. And so a young child listens to their parents talk about money. I mean, we don't think our kids are listening, but they are. And so, how you feel about anybody, how you feel about money, how you feel about every situation, your emotions, those children are watching you. They're sponges, they can feel it. So, I would say, it kind of goes back to when I was young, I was a very silly girl. I love to play tricks. I still do. I
Mhm.
love to play little tricks on my siblings. And my parents used to say that's a really stupid thing to do. They meant silly,
Wow.
but they said
Oh, okay. But they use the word stupid.
yes.
Mhm.
And stupid can have an extreme effect on a child. And my
Mhm.
parents didn't know what they were doing at the time, but I tell people choose your words wisely. It's communicating. It's all about communication. And communication, I'm going to say this again, has energy. And quantum physics is proof. And Einstein said, put the frequency out there of the reality you wish for, and you can't help but bring it to you. That's not philosophy, that's physics. And so I would say to everyone, understand your words matter, your actions matter, your behaviors matter.
That's why we're on a communicating podcast. But here's my question. Let's go back to the money part.
Mhm.
When you say your kids are listening to how you talk about money, are you saying the solution is whenever they say, "Mommy, can we buy this?" You must never say we can't afford it? Or should they always get what they want for you to say, to show them, hey, there's abundance of money in the world. It never runs out, because we talk about abundance.
Yeah, you could say we're just not buying it today. You don't have
Mm.
to discuss that you don't have the money. You can discuss and say, we're not
Mm.
buying that today. There's nothing wrong with saying we're not buying it today. I grew up, I came from 8 generations of Lutheran ministers who signed up to be economically challenged, who signed up to give their last cents to the underserved, and who really had no money to manage. And I don't want to take that away from them, because that was their journey. That was what they chose to do. But I ended up having to go down that rabbit hole to figure out why I had money issues, why different things were coming up. And my mom used to say that money was the root of all evil, and that
It's a Bible
it's
verse?
a Bible thing. And
Yeah.
that's not what it was meant at all in the Bible, but that's how it came out. And that wealthy people weren't, that money changed people.
Mm.
And so this was said, my mom didn't understand that this was going to program me, or that this was going to have. But later on in life, I ended up being chairman of the board of a nonprofit that helped homeless women get a better education. So I'm helping the underserved.
Yeah.
I ended up raising funds for inner city hospitals because they didn't have enough money to help the underserved. And yet my money was going to all of the underserved at my own detriment.
Did you
And
have anything that you needed in your personal life, or were you just focused on the underserved and making sure they were okay, but you were not okay?
well, I ended up with a large sum of money, and I was excited because I ended up divorced, and I could now help the underserved, both individual alike. And so I was giving to the underserved, but at the same point, my financial advisor made, who was, I always say this, who is with a well-known financial firm that's out there today, made an investment outside the scope of the firm, and I lost a lot of money. And it was
Mm.
because I wasn't trained to manage the money. I didn't have that in me. It wasn't imprinted in me to take care of the money. Because when I was married, my of the money, and so then you're naive, but you're ignorant if you're not taking care of the money. And so I just route, and I gave my money to the underserved. I'm now in arbitration, and all I could think of is, I'm going to lose this money. I never once didn't think I wasn't going to win. And sure enough,
Mm.
I won. The financial advisor was disbarred. The company fined.
Good. Mm.
His partner fined, but I only got 10% of what I lost. So I
Mm.
had to go down and figure out, instead of pointing the fingers at them, I had to go down and say, what put me in this position? What was it that put me here? What is it about me, inside me, that has this feeling? And so that's what took me down to studying epigenetics, which is the imprinting of our belief system, our behaviors, our thoughts from our family, from our relatives. And
Mm.
so that took me down to start decoding and dissecting myself. And that's what I went into studying: NLP and theta healing and Psyche and EMDR and hypnosis. And I just kept getting certified in everything that dealt with the subconscious mind, so that I could understand how to heal the subconscious, or bring the subconscious to a point where I'm in agreement with abundance, and that my money consciousness is at a high level, that I can hold a lot of money.
Right. Speaking of epigenetics, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh, yes, I am. Yes.
Yes, he talks a lot about epigenetics. But back to subconscious programming. So we were programmed a certain way because our parents did the best they could. But
Mhm.
now, why, first of all, a lot of us do attend the summits and the seminars and the 5-day seminar for success, and we affirm and we do all of these things, but sometimes things don't change for the better. Why is that? What's the missing link?
They haven't figured out what's in their quantum field or their timeline or embedded in them that's stopping it. They haven't found the one thing yet. And the other thing I would say is the main part of people overcoming and actually changing their trajectory, right? So
Mm,
it's like me going from fear to safety, security, and confidence, right? You have to be in the whole brain state. That means that your left hemisphere, which is your logical side, and your right hemisphere, which is your creative, have to be together as one and be in the whole brain state on the new belief. And this is why people have problems, because the logical side says, oh, I know what's best. And the creative side says, I know what's best. And they hit like this. This is why people have a hard time healing from trauma, because
hmm.
it's constantly like that. And that's one of the great things about EMDR or EMI is that both those techniques have the ability to bring you into a whole brain state. And so the healing can begin. And that's the same with putting a new belief in. And I figured out the way to move out old belief that's not serving you, put in a new belief, and then I actually double clamp it down with a technique that's called an energy psychology modality that
Hmm.
brings your left cortex or your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere into a whole brain state on the new belief.
Speaking of that, so your logical brain
Mhm.
is saying, it looks at your bank balance and it says, okay, you have this amount, right? But then you say, okay, my affirmations, let me open YouTube and affirm and say, I am this, I am this, I am that.
Mhm.
So is that the fight? Is that the disconnect?
The disconnect is saying, I am so lucky I have this money in my account. The disconnect is to me not being grateful that, oh, I do have some money in my account, or I'm so lucky I have that. I also use the phrase, um, everything's working out to my advantage. So it's
Yes.
all in what you feel. And I'm saying that this is a practice. It is a practice, and um it is a process. But you can rewire your whole self, because the more you go down a lane of fear, the more you bring the fear to you. The more you go down to the lane of safety, security, and confidence, the more you walk the life freely.
Hmm.
The more you think you're abundant, no matter whether you have one penny or you have $1,000,
What we call facts. Mm.
the more you're going to I I know I'll give an example. I have a friend,
Yeah.
and she's very fortunate. She's built two companies. She sold two companies. I guarantee you, I'll go on a walk with her um, every once in a while, probably twice a month. And when I walk with her, that woman always finds a penny on the ground and picks it up and puts it in her pocket. And she goes, "Wow, I'm so lucky. I got a lucky penny."
Hmm.
It is a mindset. And we have been so conditioned. We have been so conditioned, right and wrong. We've always been conditioned for the wrong. We've always don't do this, you know, no, no, no. Or we're conditioned to always look at the worst instead of looking at the best. Can you imagine if we looked at the best thing that happened to us and hung on to that, as long as we hang on to the worst that happened to us? It is a mindset. And that's why
And
I tell people, you are your own mind guru. Decide how you want to be the guru of your mind.
why do we do that though? Because the worst is especially what lingers on much longer in the brain than the best. The
We're
best, we
con-
can be happy for 5 minutes and we're like, oh great, my life's great. But the worst, when it happens, have you realized how much longer we just stay in that state?
It does. That's why I tell my clients, the minute you start feeling that, just say everything's working out to my advantage, or isn't it wonderful, something marvelous is happening to me right now, which are all It's either from Joseph Murphy or Goddard that says these things. And they're wonderful things to say to yourself right when it happens. But if
Mm.
you look at society, if you look at what's out there, even today, even if we go to past generations, we are conditioned for the worst. Like if we look at the news, they're always putting the worst out there. They're rarely putting the good out there. And I guarantee you, there's absolutely equal or more good going on out there in the world than what we will ever see.
I
And
truly
that's a
believe
fact.
that. Yeah, yeah.
And that's a fact. So we're conditioned from the time we're born to hang on to what negativity, to hang on for that feeling, because we don't want it. We don't want it. And so what happens is when you don't want something, you're bringing it to you because you're putting that vibration out there, and the thought is on that thing instead of the
And
thought.
you attract even the thing you fear. You attract
You,
it because you're the vibrational match for it,
Mhm.
despite it being the fear and saying, I don't want, I don't want. That's what happens.
Yes. I mean, I was in arbitration where I was like, yeah, I'm going to win. I knew I was going to win, but I had such fear I wasn't going to get the money because I knew the statistics of arbitration. But at the same point, can you imagine had I put out, you know what, money comes to me easily and quickly in increasing quantities and instantly, naturally, and automatically, or I had something going on, so I didn't have that vibrational force
Mm.
saying I wasn't going to get the money.
And you
Because
said statistics, back to what I said earlier, facts, the numbers say. So, how do I align my logical brain looking at that with the what you are teaching, which is everything is working out for my good, so that they align? Because we want to come to this
yeah, you start
state where
looking.
they align.
I'm going to say this one thing I didn't look at that time was my inherited money consciousness. So I had to go look at my beliefs about money. And so I would say to you, go back and look at your beliefs about money. If it's about money, go back and look at it. If it's about relationships, go back and look at your epigenetics connected to relationships. I guarantee you, everything goes back to that. And once you start working on those beliefs, those behaviors, those thoughts, then you become in alignment. That's
The
what
belief
brings you into
systems.
alignment.
So that's why even when you affirm, things don't change because the belief systems are still much stronger in your subconscious.
The belief systems are still there. Now, that doesn't mean that if you don't say, and I'm going to say, if you're going to do affirmations, please do them in your own voice, because your higher self recognizes your own voice. So if you like certain affirmations, that's what I'd say. Record them in your own voice and listen to them. But it is proven fact that you can change your habit if you listen or you do something for 21 days to 30 days. That then you're starting to get into that thought process. The biggest challenge that people have is staying in the 21 to 30 days.
Yeah.
People don't always like making that commitment. I mean, I have a meditation that I actually ask my clients to do for 21 days, and it's about 22 23 minutes long. It's not even mine, it came out 4 years ago, about how to raise your frequency permanently. And I say, please go through that. I give them additional instructions that this particular person doesn't give them.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same point, and I say, do it for 21 days, because 21 days, I guarantee you, you're going to really raise your frequency. It can't
Have you
help.
had any feedback from your clients? What are some of the changes they've experienced? You don't have to mention any names.
Well, I have one review actually on my website, and actually her story. She wrote the story, and it's going to be on my website. And I only went out to one of my hobbies is teaching, doing a layman's workshop on acupressure kinesiology taping for horses. And
Mm-hmm.
so somebody who knew that asked me if I'd come and teach the barn. So I said, yeah, I'll come out and do the barn. And a woman tapped into me and she said, can I pay you for a private session for my horse? And it turned out that she and her horse had trauma. and they had trauma from different times because she had just gotten the horse probably a year before, and they both had gone through trauma. The horse was taken. It was a wild horse that was taken before it was even a year old, and she had gone through trauma as a girl, and she thought she just had to suck it up. So as I'm working on the horse, she starts crying, and everything gets released. And then after we finished with this, and she even wrote that her horse and herself communicate the fact that they were able to release trauma together. And then she signed up to do, she wanted to work on her business. So she did it as a couple Zoom sessions with me on her business. And she said it took her to the next level by going through the techniques, the meditations. I give homework. So I
Yeah.
give homework to my clients. And so she said, because I did all that, I'm at the next level. I leveled up. So it's all, that's why I say it is what you're going to make the commitment to. And
Mm.
although I will say this, I have had some clients that have come in. I had one girl come in and say, you know what? She was an entrepreneur. She owned 3 businesses. She said, you know, my relationships are great. My friendships, everything's great. But my companies, I'm having a problem with the companies. And so she had a ceiling, a limit on her abundance ceiling. And so we went through the process of finding where that was stuck. We removed it, and we elevated her abundance, what I call abundance meter, or her abundance mindset,
Mm.
to make it magnetized. And I hadn't heard from her for a month, and so I email my clients if I haven't. And she said, oh my gosh, I've had the most abundant month ever. And it's because you get rid of this vibration. You've now rewired. It's kind of like what Joe Dispenza says. It's rewiring. What I do is, and it's with you, you're rewiring your brain to
Mm.
go the direction that you wish for it to go in. I've had other people that when I do this energy psychology modality on them, at the end of the session, I always close with it, that their voice, I've had at least 3 or 4 clients that their voice will actually change an octave, which means the way they're going to communicate has changed.
Do you know how many times we've had a guest talking about how voice, one is a voice coach, and she said, we are not using our authentic voices, and whatever pitch we are using is based on something that happened, a trauma, or as kids, if we wanted something, we use a certain voice to get it, otherwise, we don't. There's a lot attached to the voices we use based on that.
Well, one of the clients that I'm thinking of, that voice actually changed when we did the energy psychology modality, which means that her left hemisphere and her right hemisphere were in the whole brain state on the new belief.
Mm.
And she changed the octave in her voice. She had trauma, and part of the trauma was she had been choked. And so now she had released that trauma, and now she could speak freely. So it was a beautiful thing to see, because she wasn't speaking her authentic self.
Hmm, that is amazing.
So
And then back to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was going to say it's all different. It's not just money. It's traumas. It's different things that are holding us back in our lives, that if we really just sit down and see what's working and what's not, we can figure it out.
Yes, and back to trauma, here's what I've heard, and you can correct me on this. Is it true that whatever age you were when the incident happened, that part of your life in the subconscious, you remain that age whenever it's triggered? So if something happens to me and I was a 7-year-old girl, so
Yes.
if the 7-year-old me comes back each time something have a similar experience that triggers that.
You may not realize that, it's the 7-year-old girl that's coming back, but it is all the emotions from that very point, that that comes back. So absolutely. And
Hmm.
so that's why I say to everybody, be prepared, because part of it, when you go through this discovery and you really want to live your authentic life and you really want to step into the abundance that we're all entitled to, because there's plenty for everybody, it's not limited. And we all have different dreams, and that's what makes it so absolutely beautiful.
Right.
In this process, it can be a little painful because you have to sit in the 7-year-old girl and you have to be able to sit in that emotion. And as you sit into the emotion, you will see that it will start to dissipate and release you because you're willing to sit in it and let it go. And it's a process, but it works, and it's beautiful.
It certainly is. So back to the 21-day consistency, is there something else you can give us as tips in order to reprogram for success?
Well, one is being honest with yourself and writing the list. What's working professionally, and what's working personally, and then see what's emotions and thoughts and everything that aren't working on both sides. That gives you a head start. The other thing is that when we talk about when anxieties come up or we feel emotions come up, I
Mm-hmm.
give people something that's called the 1 point. It's a shortened version of the 1 point, and that's something that the samurais used prior to going into battle, because they understood that if they kept all the emotions and everything in their head, they would be top heavy and they wouldn't be able to think clearly. So they would
Right.
move all their emotions down to their hara point, which is 2 inches below the navel, and then flow it down their legs. So are you game? You want to try it right now?
Oh,
We can try
yes,
it.
please. Yes, go ahead.
It's only 90 seconds. And I give this to everyone because it's really important on when you start feeling that, or you feel too much going through your head, to really get you centered and down. So
Okay.
I'll ask if anybody's driving and listening to this, please don't do this, just listen to it.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask everybody to take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, close down your eyes. And now take all the thoughts and emotions and feelings that you have about everything. I mean, just everything that's in your day to day, everything that's bothering you, just all the emotions and feelings. Rather, get them all the thoughts, and put them in the middle of your head. And now feel these thoughts move down, down, down. We're going to move it to 2 inches below your navel, down, and just feel it flow. Let all the thoughts, emotions, feelings just flow down to 2 inches below your navel. And now from that point, see a bright light. And now from that bright light, see it flow down your legs to the ground, to the center of the earth. And just feel everything flow down to your navel, down your legs, to the ground, to the center of the earth. And now you can open your eyes. So I have people do this because we can get overwhelmed with life, and we can allow our thoughts and our emotions to get in the way. And this is a way that if you're going into a big meeting, or if you've had a hectic day and you're going in to see your family, or you're going to go meet some friends, whatever it is a way to clear your mind. And if you feel it coming on, and you're going into a meeting or meeting with people, you can always do this. You could just stand in a bathroom stall and do this. I mean, it is a way to just very clear out everything. And I would say that's a start in reprogramming yourself, in being able to center yourself, bring yourself into an emotional intelligence state.
And it does feel a little lighter.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. That's the shortened version. There is a little bit longer version, but I made it short so that people could use it in business.
Mm-hmm. And what about, there was a sound you were making as it was going down?
Oh, I was just clicking my
Oh, the
fingers.
click fingers. Oh, okay. And then
I was just
speaking
doing
of,
that because there's a beat to it and it helps people just slowly go down.
that was beautifully done. Speaking of feelings, it's back to, as you said, Dr. Joe Dispenza says, it's the feeling. You can
Yeah.
affirm all you want, but if the body, if you're not feeling it, how do we get into the state of believing and feeling and your body saying, yeah, I truly am embracing this? Because I think that's where we struggle the most.
That is where we struggle the most, because we'll look at the 3D world and we'll say, well, wait, I'm still in the same space. Are you really though? If you've changed your energy, then you can't help but bring, you know, the equal amount of energy to you. And that's why he talks about being in the state. It's kind of like when we stub our toe and we say, oh, this day is going to be terrible all day. You know, you stub the toe in the morning and
Yeah,
you go, it rolls out that
it
way.
ruins your day.
You label it instead of saying, oh, I stubbed my toe and I'm going on my day. You know, it's just something that happened, instead of labeling your whole day that way. And so when Joe talks about it, because I think also Neville Goddard talks about this too,
Yes.
and he talks about it too. It's really, our minds really have control of us. If we can move our mind into our heart and let the heart dictate, we would be much freer. And so I say to people, and that's when they talk about imagining it, or the feelings coming from your heart, not your head. Your head,
Mm.
your head, in matter of fact, your heart will never, ever, that's when they talk about brain and heart coherence. Your,
Yes. Mm.
this is something I teach my clients too. Your heart will never lead you wrong. It is up here that's going to lead you astray. So I teach how we can just flow our brain, and people can do it while we're talking now. Just imagine your brain going down into your heart. And if this makes you feel any better, your heart has a brain, and your heart from an electrical standpoint has more volts than your brain. So why wouldn't you want to come from
Wow.
your heart? And so when you're we coming from our heart, I mean, it's beautiful. And that's what they're talking about. If you want that job, then go to the heart and feel that job.
Mm.
You're not going to feel that in your brain. You're going to feel it in your heart. And so when they talk, that's the one thing they don't always talk about. I think Joe does talk about going into your heart, but it
Yes.
really is important to understand that the feeling is in here, not here.
The feeling is in the heart.
The feeling is in the heart. So I actually would say this to people. We just went through the 1 point. Why don't you visualize your brain sliding down into your heart,
Hmm.
and then make decisions from that? You know, there's Greg Braden. I don't know if people know who he is, but
Yes, and I know Dr. Braden, he was, when they were talking about quantum physics, was he in The Secret? No, but
no,
not long after The Secret had discovered him. Yes.
no, yeah, he's wonderful. And when COVID started, he was actually in Australia. And so the
Mm.
last plane, they were allowing the last couple planes to go out, and the last plane was going to he wanted to go home because he lives in New Mexico. And nobody was getting on these planes. And the woman said, are you sure you want to go back to the United States? Because Australia was pretty much locked down and didn't have as many
Yeah.
cases. You know, they were pretty clear. And he said, I had to walk away because he said, literally, I'm going on this big jet and there's only like 14 people going. And so I had to ask myself, is this safe? Because I didn't want to get caught up in all. And he said, I walked around the corner. I put my hand on my heart and I took 3 or 4 deep breaths and said, is it safe? And it said, yes. And he said, I got on the plane and I got home.
Wow.
And
Just like that.
yeah, and I do that a lot. Actually
Mm.
will disclose that I will put my hand on my heart. If I really, and I'll ask people to do something right now. And as we talk about speaking and frequencies and that, if you put your hand on your heart and say your name and you feel the vibration in it,
Mm.
and then say somebody else's name that's not yours and feel the vibration, you will
It's
feel the difference.
different.
You will feel the difference. And so when you start practicing that, it will help you also, because you'll get in tune then with the frequency where you won't even have to put your hand on your heart.
Absolutely amazing. Janet Elaine Schmidt, is there one last thing I didn't ask you were hoping to share today?
Well, what I'd say to everyone is that the success that you desire for, and I know for some it may say, yeah, 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 but I promise you, the success that you desire for is real and obtainable. But you have to understand the power is in our hands. We have been given the power. So it's just finding the techniques, finding the teachers, finding whatever's going to work for your frequency to bring you to that point, because there's plenty out there that's going to work for you with your subconscious conscious mind to bring you into what I call the super conscious, which then is in the heart.
Words of wisdom from Janet Elaine Schmidt, the performance facilitator and mind guru, who helps you to be your own mind guru. Thank you so much for being here today. This has been
Uh,
absolutely amazing.
it's been a joy. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Don't forget, oh, before you go, where can you find you online?
You can find me at meetjess.com or janetelaine.schmidt.com.
All right, I will put that on the show notes. mejazz.com, janetelaine.schmidt.com. Thank you, Janet. Don't forget
Thank
to
you.
subscribe. My pleasure. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify, and stay tuned for more episodes to come.